Oh, hi, Mark. All right, so tonight we're here to talk about a movie, yet another movie that I didn't think I'd be talking about. Um, I am reviewing a film called Channel 13, which is a shot on video horror film, another shot on video horror film, directed by, I believe, Mark Polonia, and it was shot in 1987, but I don't think it was released until like 2015. And actually, I think it was partially shot in 2015 as well. Let me turn this fan down, or you know what? Better yet, let's turn the fan off. um, I like that for white noise, but I'm sure it comes across terrible in the videos. Anyway, but I think the wraparound was shot in 2015, and then all of the story segments were shot in 1987. And essentially, this is an anthology film, just as hinted at by my saying that they're segments. And it follows, well, the wraparound follows this horror fan who evidently spends his days in an arcade and has a really dope ass living room or man cave or whatever that is with the leather couch. Like in this room, he has like a leather couch and like Pac-Man ghosts on the back of it, and then a Pac-Man, like they're these pillow things, and then he has a Dawn of the Dead poster and just a bunch of other like horror memorabilia. Um, so we follow that guy, and what's he doing the whole movie? He's watching TV. Because, we got to get to Channel 13 somehow, which is the channel that all of this takes place on. By the way, this is the physical copy of the film. I just ordered it from Amazon. That is the world's coolest cover art. I mean, genuinely, if you can find me a cover art cooler than that, I mean, that thing is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Anyway, sorry about that. I had to show you guys the disc because not that, I mean, the cover art's gonna be on the thumbnail, but whatever. Um, and yeah, essentially it's just this guy wearing a Halloween shirt, which, by the way, like, can you get away with that in movies? Lucio, quit sniffing around, you little weirdo. But can you get away with that in movies where like he was wearing a merch shirt of a different horror movie that they didn't own the rights to? Like, this is that kind of confuses me as far as rights issues goes, because I know like you couldn't show a bottle of Heinz ketchup in in a movie, if you wanted to make money off of the movie, because rights issues, like, kind of. Lucio, what are you doing? Come here. Stop. The bad thing about having the dog in the room at all times. He just sniffs everything. And then he walks around making a nuisance of himself. I'm joking. You don't make a nuisance of yourself. Come here. Come here. But he's so cute, though. Look at him. Look at his little face. Yeah. I'm talking about your little face. Anywho, I got off into a tangent about rights and shit in horror movies, and it doesn't matter at all. But anyway, yeah, this guy sits down, and for whatever reason, on every channel, there's just a bunch of shot on video horror movies playing. I imagine, because I would guess that those are Polonia Brothers movies playing on those channels, because that's what they have the rights to, right? They have the rights to their own movies. So that would make a lot of sense to me. And so let's just get into the review. Basically, he turns on his television, he stumbles across the titular Channel 13, where a man in a terrible Grim Reaper costume begins telling him, well, I don't want to say telling him stories, but it becomes clear that this man in this terrible Grim Reaper costume is the host of this Channel 13, and that he's going to show us clips, or not clips, but, you know, 3 tales of terror, if you want to call them tales of terror. So first of all, I want to say that the wraparound story in this film is very basic. I mean, it's super basic, which is fine. It's okay. But I will also say that Grim Reaper guy was terrible. The host of Channel 13, why couldn't they have made it just a little better? You know, like, what really bothered me, the mask didn't bother me. That didn't bother me. I get it. Like, it's a shot-on-video horror movie. That's how shot-on-video effects look. They look super fake and whatever. They look obviously like latex. That's fine. That's absolutely fine with me. What wasn't fine with me is that I could see his mouth every time he talked. I could see his mouth through the mask he was wearing. Which makes no damn sense. If you're gonna do something like this, I swear to God, it would have taken 2 seconds. Take a piece of black cloth and put it in the mouth of the mask. Just like that Party City shit, man. Just put black cloth in the mouth and the eyes of the mask. He doesn't really have to see. He doesn't really do anything in this movie. It would be fine. It would be fine. But no, instead we see his mouth moving. We see his eyes moving. It's very silly. And then whenever he speaks, I could never understood a word. Or, Jesus. If I can use proper English for 3 seconds, I could never understand a word he was saying. Ever. I think I might have caught, like, a word here and there that was coming out of his mouth, but for the most part, there was this terrible effect that was used to his voice, and it was supposed to make him sound menacing, but what ended up happening is it was this terrible, like, gravelly, I don't know, washed out sort of sound effect in his voice, and it was just absolutely god-awful. I couldn't understand him. I will say the first segment in this movie takes place at this house, I guess, in the middle of nowhere, where they're having this party. I would guess it's a Halloween party, because the few people we do see there are in costume. So I suppose it's some kind of Halloween party, and basically a scarecrow is brought to life by this strange loner who, I don't know what they were insinuating with him, because he was like out there poking spiders and shit, and like doing this dopey little smile. Like, was he supposed to be mentally challenged? I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what they were trying to do with his character. Maybe he's just really weird. But that wouldn't explain, like, why was he out there poking spiders? Is that what like socially awkward people do all day? They just poke spiders. Matter of fact, I can tell you they don't, because I've been socially awkward my entire damn life. I don't just go around poking giant cat spiders that hang around outside my house, alright? Never once has that happened. But, anyway, basically the story is no one likes this guy. Not even his own brother. And everyone is constantly shitting on this guy because he's a little weird. He's a little out there. And so basically he's like, alright, well, then I'll just bring this here scarecrow to life, and he'll wreck all of your days. He'll just wreck your day and, murder you. But he's successful in it somehow. I have no idea. The movie doesn't explain it, which is fine. Like, it's a shot-on-video horror movie. I don't really need to know how the scarecrow came to life, especially since it's a shot-on-video anthology horror movie that's about an hour and 14 minutes long. So, that gives you an idea to how much time was really spent in each segment. And actually, I think the first segment is the longest segment. The first segment is the segment that I'm the most fond of. But anyway, yeah, he's successful in bringing the Scarecrow to life, and the Scarecrow kind of has a crappy effect to its voice, if I remember correctly. Kind of like the host of Channel 13, but I think it was a little better, maybe. And like, he just walks through the door, and I found it so friggin' funny. This guy was sitting there, the socially awkward guy was sitting there in this chair, like he was just waiting for this Scarecrow to walk through the door and greet him. And he's so nonchalant about it when the Scarecrow walks through the door. He's like, "Hi. How you doing? How the wife and kids, Frank?" Of course, he doesn't actually say that shit, but that's the general vibe I get from this. Like, this isn't the first time he has brought a Scarecrow to life and sat at a table with it. Because the Scarecrow just walks over and he's like, "They hurt you, didn't they?" And he's like, "Yes, they did." And they have a conversation. Honestly, I couldn't hear the conversation very well because of some audio issues that I'll get into later in the review. But that the Scarecrow leaves the conversation off with, "Let's kick some ass," which is that's the most perfect line that could have come out of a killer Scarecrow's mouth. Or I guess he didn't have a mouth, but whatever, it doesn't matter. And that's what they do. They go and they wreak havoc in this party. They don't, like, go into the party. I would imagine they just couldn't find enough people to be extras in their movie to actually have a full party. And so what they do is they kind of pick off stragglers that wander into different parts of the house. The first guy wanders into the basement, and he's in a full Michael Myers costume. Like, this goes back to the rights question that I was having earlier. How in the hell do we get away with this? This is a full Michael Myers costume in this movie. And anyway, the guy's, like, drunk, and he's trying to lift weights, and it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Because it's just this guy in a Michael Myers costume with, like, a bottle of Captain Morgan or some shit. And he's down there in the basement, and it's got, like, a bar. I'm talking about the weight bench. It's got, like, a bar and 10-pound weights on either side is what it looks like. And he's sitting there like, and he can't even get it off the rack. And what's funny is he sits there and he continues to get it off the rack, which is like, man, if you can't get that off the rack to begin with, and you just keep trying, eventually you'll probably get it off the rack, and you won't be able to lift it off yourself, dumbass. But second of all, he didn't look like a twig. Like, are you telling me this guy can't lift a 45-pound bar plus 2 10-pound weights on either side? I mean, even if they're 15 pounds, I don't fully buy that. It was pretty funny, though, to see him sit there and struggle, and then he's, like, doing this pull cable workout with all these weights attached, and he's, like, using his whole body to lift all the weights. It's like, that is the worst form I've ever seen in my adult life. Congratulations. But, we do get a really cool, in my opinion, it was cool, really cool kill out of this guy. The Scarecrow comes right up behind him and just punches through his head, and it comes out the Michael Myers mask. And that is exactly the kind of effect that I'm talking about, where, like, it's super obvious that it's latex and it's fake. Doesn't matter. It looks ridiculously cool, in my opinion. And then there was an earlier scene in the grocery store where the socially awkward guy stabs a grocery store associate a few times. It's not really that notable, other than he says that the knife isn't for him. He says it's for a friend, but then to my memory, the Scarecrow never uses the knife. So that's kind of odd. I think the Scarecrow either uses his bare hand. Oh wait, actually he might use the knife for the last kill. I might have just told you lies. But anyway, and then another cool effect in that was his brother, who obviously isn't a huge fan of him, stumbles across the Scarecrow in the basement, and the Scarecrow has an axe, and it buries the axe in his brother's head, and it kind of cuts in between these close-up shots of the gore and like a caved-in piece of head and everything, and it looks super fake and super latex, like I said, but it's a very cool kind of close-up, and then it'll zoom out more, and it's like they had kind of taken the time to make it look like the axe was buried into his brother's head, but you can tell that this is two different things when it's cutting in between the two. Like, one is like they took the time to make this effect on his brother's head that was kind of cheesy looking, and then they, like, and the other shot was a mannequin or something like that. Not a mannequin, but like a gel head that they had made or something with the axe actually buried into its head. And he kind of takes the axe out and whacks him a few more times with it, and that's a cool effect. Terrible looking. Like, it doesn't look real or whatever. It doesn't have to. This is supposed to be a fun movie. Like, it's not supposed to be ultra realistic, and in my opinion, they succeeded. This first segment was really cool. That's exactly what I wanted out of this movie, if I'm being entirely honest. And then in the second segment, we get this bird creature, which is actually claymation, which I will admit is pretty neat, honestly. Like, using claymation in a horror film is something that I think is really inventive. It's really creative, and it kind of makes me wonder why it's not done more often. However, here it didn't look the best. Essentially, the whole second segment is just this big guy walking around in the snow, eating some sunflower seeds out of a friggin' store sack. And then every once in a while it'll cut to this claymation monstrosity of a monster bird or something. And it'll be making these sounds. Those sounds were awful, by the way. Every single sound the bird made in this movie was one of the worst displeasures my ears have ever experienced. This whole segment was ear rape. Like, the whole segment was just this bird sound whoring into your ears, trying to... I hated the sounds this thing made. They were just super unpleasant. They weren't menacing sounds. They weren't like, ooh, that's kind of cool. It was the whole time, that sounds awful. It sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Please stop. And they don't stop for the entire segment. And like I said, the entire segment is this guy walking around in the snow, hearing these sounds, turning around, seeing the bird. He drops the sunflower seeds, the bird eats the sunflower seeds. He hears the sounds again, he turns around, he sees the bird, and the bird comes toward him, and we're led to believe that it ate him or something. That's it. It's the whole segment. That segment sucks. I'm sorry to say, the only really good thing about that is that I think it's really super interesting and very inventive that they used claymation in this segment, which honestly, for what I'm sure their budget and their time frame was, well, obviously they didn't have a time frame. This movie was shot in 1987 and it came out in 2015. But at the time, I'm sure they were men on a mission, you know, trying to get this done. And so I'm sure for the budget and everything like that, it's probably pretty good. I enjoyed the way it looked. I will say that if this bird looked like if it weren't a children's show, that this would have been like that one nightmare fuel thing that you always remembered, like the baby's face in the sun and Teletubbies. Like this thing, it just came across as something that would just show up in a children's show randomly and give you nightmares for years to come. And then throughout all of the film, and I do mean throughout all of the film, I think all 3 segments had this. There were these random sound effects. In the 3rd segment, they were actually incorporated into the segment, where these random sound effects, I think, were supposed to be the sound of a chainsaw or something, but they were still terrible. They still sounded terrible, like nails on a chalkboard. They made me want to bash my head into a car door 92 times in a row. I can't with those sounds. I really, really can't. Whoever told them those sounds were a good idea or a good look for them seriously needs to reevaluate their eardrums. Because I'm telling you what, man, I have no desire to ever hear those sounds again. Now, don't take that as me saying I'll never watch this movie again, because I actually had a really fun time with this movie. I am going to trash a little on it, because it is kind of... I'm kind of doing a review here. It's more of a discussion than a review, but it, you know, at least that's kind of what I like to label them, so it doesn't sound too official, because I'm not exactly an authority on movies or anything. I'm a guy who likes movies, who likes talking about them, but anyway, and then the costumes and the acting, both terrible, of course. I mean, these movies were done on a shoestring budget. A truly shoestring budget. Pretty sure Mark and John Polonia, that's the other brother's name, right? John. But I'm pretty sure both of the Polonia brothers were in that movie as characters. Like, I'm pretty sure they played the brother characters in the beginning one, and then they played 2 characters in the end, the final one as well. But the costume design was really bad. It really was quite bad. In the final segment of the film, there was this character who was supposed to be like this old Vietnam vet, but it was just one of them or one of their friends or something, dressed up in this green jumpsuit with like pillows stuffed in the jumpsuit to make him look a little fat. And then he had like his beard in it was terrible. It literally looked like he had like shaved his arms or something, slathered his face in glue or honey or something, and just sprinkled his arm hair all over his face. I don't know how they made that beard. Like, it's a very interesting looking beard. And it's very, I don't know, it kind of unsettled me. I want to know where it came from and how it was made, because that thing looked nasty. It just... That's only one of the costumes, too. Like, the Scarecrow, with what they had, again, the Scarecrow was pretty good with what they had. But... you know, and then they have like a sackhead killer that stays in the basement in the 3rd segment, which isn't bad. I mean, I like that costume design. It's a pretty basic costume design, but what do you want? What do you want out of these guys? Come on. And then there was, this is pretty much the final point I actually have to make on this movie, actually. There were these hilarious music cues throughout. And the only reason they're hilarious is because they are so recognized now, these specific music cues. Like, these are in the... I don't know, they seem like they're public use music cues where everyone just uses them now. You find them in YouTube videos now. You know, like the... it's like, do, 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 do. That music cue was used like 8 times in this movie. No joke. And it was absolutely hysterical every single time. I laughed out loud probably 5 or 6 times in this movie. Which, again, isn't a bad thing, because it means I was having fun with this film. And, you know, at the end of the day, Channel 13 is a movie that I watch, and I don't necessarily see all the bad shit in this movie. I mean, I do, obviously, because I have it all written down right there off screen, and I noticed all of it. But actually, shit. One thing I forgot to mention, cameraman shadow. You can see the cameraman's shadow everywhere, like a lot. And in the second segment, you could actually see the cameraman in the guy's sunglasses as he was moving around. But anyway, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. That was my bad. Where was I? Yeah. So Channel 13 isn't a movie that I necessarily see for its flaws, even though obviously, like I said, I do. They're written down right there. I took notes. I noticed them. But this is a movie that I watch, and it's just, I get this really cool shot at home vibe from it. Like, I get this really neat sort of vibe from this movie that's like, this was just a couple of people who wanted to make a movie, and they didn't procrastinate, and they were like, yeah, I'm gonna make a movie today. And they did it. And what came out was really fun. And they did it with, like, a budget. I'm sure this budget was like, I don't know, man. I don't want to lowball it, but I want to say, like, this was probably a budget of a couple $100. Which is pretty nuts. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong, because that seems like a very low budget. Let's say a couple $1,000s. Even if it's a couple $1,000 budget, that's so low. That's so low. But these guys, like, they didn't care. They made their movie. And the result was a really fun, kind of endearing horror movie that just really feels like a couple of guys just decided they wanted to make a horror movie one day, and they fucking did it. And that's one of the coolest things about this movie. So, you know, rating this movie is a bit tricky to me, as, like I said, it's like a done-at-home, do-it-yourself horror movie. So it wouldn't be fair for me to necessarily hold this movie on the same scale as something like Suspiria. You know? Like, Suspiria is just a better movie. It is what it is. Suspiria had a budget. Suspiria had a crew. Suspiria had a real cast of real actors that actually acted, and a costume designer, and a set designer. And this movie didn't have any of that. It just had some guys. So it is hard for me to rate this film. At the end of the day, I think I am going to rate it just like I would rate any other movie, meaning that it's going to be about a 4, maybe 4.5. But just because I rated it below average doesn't mean that I have negative feelings towards this movie. Understand that I'm rating this mostly on the fact that it had a lot of technical issues. It had a lot of audio issues, which I actually don't know if I touched on, but, like, sometimes it sounded like people were speaking through red Solo cups, and then the score would, like, tower over their voice, but it had a lot of issues. Like I said, a lot of audio issues, a lot of acting issues, a lot of costume issues, a lot of issues, just a lot of them. But it's fun. It's fun enough for me. I will personally watch Channel 13 many more times. I think this movie's really fun. And I think if you like this sort of movie, then you would think it's fun as well. If you don't like this sort of movie, you are going to be one of those people that's like, this is the worst movie ever made. which I actually saw one of the reviews on Amazon was like, "This is the worst movie ever made. Don't waste your time." There's nothing constructive about that. I guess if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. Whatever. But I don't feel that way, obviously. I think Channel 13 is fun. I do recommend it, even though it obviously got like 4 from me. 4.5, somewhere around there. So, again, if you like shot-on-video horror movies, I say give it a shot. If you guys stuck in there till the end, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the view, and leave a like. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.